What's up? What's up? Let's get it. We here this morning. Oh man, I couldn't wait to get here, man. Salute. We're gonna let the people get up in here, man, and then we're gonna fire this thing up, man. Like I said, man, happy Friday, everybody. It is January the 2nd, 2026. How about that? How about that? Shout out to my people for tapping in. It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be real. I appreciate you all. So today, on today's episode, man, we got Sonny Boy. Sonny says that FBA, we're jealous of the raza. Now, Sonny, I would like to know, what are we jealous of? And then he put words in my mouth, right? I never said that blacks were Aztecs or any of that. What I said was blacks are indigenous to the Americas. Like even in Mexico, they acknowledge the blacks in Mexico as Afro-indigenous. Why? Because there's many different tribes in Mexico who were indigenous to the land. The Aztecs were not the first civilizations. The Mayans were not the first civilization. I believe one of the first civilizations, and it could be somebody before that, but one of the first civilizations in Mexico was the Aztecs. The Mayans and the Aztecs came later. Excuse me, the Olmecs. The Olmecs was one of the first civilizations in Mexico. The Aztecs and the Mayans came way later in the game. So the same thing for North America, the United States. There were many different indigenous tribes. They didn't all look the same. So they just acknowledged that, like I said, the indigenous people, the Afro-indigenous people in Mexico, not Africans, not the Africans who came on slave ships. Because keep in mind, you had indigenous blacks who were already there. Then, of course, Spanish brought more. Of course, the Spanish brought Africans with them when they colonized Mexico. So I want you to hear. Make sure that you guys bless the like button. Make sure that you guys bless the like button. It ain't nothing. This is gonna be good, man. So tap on in. I got some heat for you, man. Some real heat. Let's see what Sonny Boy had to say.
Cracking everybody. Buenos dias. Salud.
And keep in mind, I'm doing Sonny a favor by even talking about him. You know, his videos might get like 200 views, 300 on average, you know. So I don't need him for no clout. I don't need anybody for clout. I'm talking about him to prove a point because Sonny speaks for his people. Sonny's not the only Chicano who thinks like this. You know, Sonny speaks for a large percentage of Chicanos, Mexicanos. Now you're gonna have some of them who don't, but at the same time, you're gonna have, I'll say, well over 50%, maybe even 70% of Chicanos feel the same way as Sonny. You know, this is the same guy who said he wants to march against our reparations. The raza needs to march so that blacks can get our so that blacks can get reparations. Tell them no. The raza needs to march against blacks getting reparations. So you know, unfortunately, he's not the only one who feels this way. So when I talk about Sonny, you know I'm not doing it for clout because I don't need Sonny for anything. Yeah, the Incas too. Shout out to the Incas. There were many indigenous tribes of the Americas. Like it, you know, just like you have the Creek Indians, the you know, the Seminoles, the Choctaws, the Cherokees, and many more. These were different tribes in North America and many more. I can't even name them all. There were so many of them. But anyway, let's get into this content. Yeah, Sonny said that Arasa needs to march against blacks getting reparations. Said, wow.
So let's get back to this FBA and Red Supreme. You know, I know a lot of raza doesn't understand or know what these individuals are trying to take from you or what they're doing. And for a long time I used to wonder why is it always about raza? Everything they talk about, raza this, raza that. What's come down to the blacks saying that they're the indigenous ones to this land, to the Americas. That they are the original Native Americans. There's no such thing as Native American. They were all black. And history changed that in order to take their glory from them. That is what they do. Then now they're claiming to be Olmecas. They're claiming to be Aztecs and Mayans. They claim to have won Siglo the War and Siglo de Maya with a Pueblo, France and Pueblo. They're saying that they fought that war and won it for Mexico. It's like they're trying to strip us of any kind of history. They're trying.
Sonny, a black man in Mexico abolished slavery. And he was assassinated like less than a year after he became president because the rulers of Mexico wanted pale-skinned people to be in power in Mexico. Vincent Guerrero, nicknamed El Negro, was fighting so that blacks in Mexico would be acknowledged, so that blacks in Mexico would have the civil rights that they rightfully deserve, right? Because the black Seminoles, they fought at the border, defended Mexico's borders from the United States. Okay, the Africans, like, look up Gaspar Yanga, and I'm gonna show y'all some videos on Gaspar Yanga. Gaspar Yanga in southern Mexico had an army of blacks, and they would fight off the Spanish. They defeated the Spanish in several battles. So blacks in Mexico played a major role in Mexico gaining their independence from Spain. Just look it up. It's in the history books. Vincent Guerrero abolished slavery and made sure that Mexico got their independence from Spain. But like I said, he was assassinated right after that. He was assassinated by the pale-faced Mexicans, the Spaniard-looking Mexicans. Vincent Guerrero was getting too much power, and he was a Negro, and blacks would have had too much power if Vincent Guerrero would have lived longer. That's why they turned his TV off and cut his and you know what I mean, got him up out of there because they didn't like what he was doing for the black indigenous people in Mexico. They were gaining too much power under El Negro, also known as Vincent Guerrero. Vincent Guerrero was the second president of Mexico. You know what I mean? He was the second president of Mexico. So we're not trying to steal anything, Sonny. And I'm gonna give you a fact. The Spanish conquistadors erased black history in Mexico. Do you know that Mexico barely acknowledged blacks in the census maybe like 10 years ago? So they erased a lot of that Afro-indigenous history in Mexico. The Spanish conquistadors did it. But guess what? That's what Spanish conquistadors do. Everywhere they go, they colonize the land and they erase the history. And they taught the raza, lighter people, how to have hatred for blacks. Because keep in mind, the Moors ruled Spain for centuries. This is prior to the transatlantic slave trade. So the black Moors dominated Spain, Portugal, and many and you know other parts of Europe. So the Spanish had a deep hatred for blacks because blacks did conquer Spain for centuries. It was like maybe like 4 or 5 centuries. Could be longer than that. But I'm talking about in the 1100s, the 1200s, the 1300s, the 1400s. This is when the black Moors and the Moors were from North Africa. So they conquered Spain prior to the transatlantic slave trade. The Spanish learned the route. The Spanish learned how to sail the Atlantic Ocean from the Moors. The black Moors civilized Europe, taught them a whole lot of things. So the Spanish conquistadors got a lot of gain from the Moors because the Moors conquered them for like at least 5 centuries. So when the Spanish conquistadors traveled the world to conquer new land, they took that anti-black hatred with them everywhere they went. This is why there's so much anti-blackness in Latin America. It ain't just Mexico. Most of these Spanish-speaking countries, Latin America, where they speak Spanish, they have anti-blackness in their culture. And I just told you why. The Moors were salty. They hated the blacks for conquering Spain. So anti-blackness runs deep in Latino culture. It runs deep in Latin America. But let me get back to Mexico. The Spanish conquistadors erased a lot of black history. This is why the blacks in Mexico are now acknowledged as Afro-Indigenous. Afro-Indigenous. Because it is scientifically proven that blacks was in Mexico centuries, way before the Spanish conquistadors even showed up. And we'll get into that in a second. But listen to Sonny and his foolishness.
Trying to make it seem as if raza was a non-factor. You know, we have a lot of history that we've added to society. I just found out we invented the flow of traffic. Of course, we made tacos. So always got to make those tacos, right?
No, Mexicans didn't create tacos. Tacos actually came from on the whole other side of the world, and Mexicans made it their own way. And I'm gonna give you the proof of that. But that's neither here nor there. But we'll get into that now. A black man created the traffic light, Sonny. This is a known fact. This is a historical fact. A black man created the traffic light that's used all across the world. A black man did the first open heart surgery. A black man created he did the first blood transfusion. You know, the gas masks that we use all the time. A black man created the gas masks that the military uses, that the police and law enforcement use. And the list goes on and on. All the music we listen to, created by black folks, foundational black Americans. The list goes on, Sonny.
The agriculture aspect. There's so many things that we had in geometry.
Africans were already doing science and all of that way before. And like I say, let's be real, Sonny, there was no such thing as a Mexican prior to the 1500s. So the indigenous tribes of Mexico, and like I say, they were black indigenous people in Mexico way before the Spaniards showed up. So this is scientifically proven. And like I said, there was no such thing as a Mexican prior to the 1500s. None of those indigenous tribes in Mexico had Spanish blood. None of them had conquistador blood. The Aztecs didn't have Spanish conquistador blood. Neither did the Mayans. Neither did the Incas. Neither did the Olmecs. Mexicans are like, if you take a group, if you take like 3 different races and blend them together, that's how you get a Mexican. Mexicans was created out of colonization. They were created when the Spanish came over here and colonized the land, and they, slept with the women, impregnated them, and then created a whole nother race of people, created a whole nother ethnic group. So the Mexicans are a brand new ethnic group. You have to blend Europeans along with a few other tribes to create a Mexican. So we have to be honest about history. We got to be real about science. And if you don't believe me, just study the history. There was no such thing as a Mexican prior to the 1500s. The Spanish conquistadors created the Mexican by sleeping with the different women, colonized the land, essaying the women, sexually assaulting the women, impregnating them. So the Spaniards created Mexicans. Prior to the Spanish showing up, there was no such thing.
Astrology, rubbers. We all know we need rubbers, right? So the Mexicans have, and the Raza has had their fair
Do you
share.
know that the raza was not Mexicans? It was the cosmic I believe the cosmic race of people. Basically, it's a mixture of different groups of people. But of course, Mexicans took credit for the word. But if you study the origins of raza, it wasn't meant just for Mexicans. It was for the different groups of people who were there. But that's a whole nother story. We're not fighting for the word Rasa. We're just getting to the origins of the word. And I will dive into that later on in the show. We're going to get into what Rasa really means. The origins of the word is completely different from how Mexicans use it today.
Of inventions and apply.
Yeah, they said Mexica, but the Aztecs did not have Spanish European blood. They didn't. And just because, listen, being Mexican doesn't mean that you have Aztec blood. There were different indigenous tribes all over Mexico. So a lot of Mexicans are not, a lot of them don't have blood ties to the Aztecs. It's just the reality. You got different tribes of blacks that you had, just like you had different tribes of natives. So they were all different. They're not the same. Do you know that those native groups had different languages, different cultures, a whole different way of life, a whole different way of living? So no, a lot of Mexicans think they have Aztec blood, but the reality of it is a lot of them don't. It just depends on where your people come from in Mexico. Your people might be from a different region in Mexico and you have no Aztec blood, right? That's like if you in the Americas, some people have blood ties to the Creek Indians, some people have blood ties to the Black Seminoles and or the Choctaws or whatever. There's different tribes of natives. Everybody can't trace their blood back to the same tribe.
Not even applied, just it's helped out society in general. It's just like any other group.
The Spaniards did create Mexicans. Prior to the Spanish showing up, there was no such thing as a Mexican. So they created them. They created them through mixing.
Any other group has done that. Me, I've always looked at it a certain way. They have the black guerrilla, they have the Black Panthers, they have the Brown Berets, they have the whites, the Ku Klux Klan. They have these different organizations, and I've always felt that they were the same. Even when I was little, even the Brown Berets, I felt that they were the same. Now, I might offend some people, but my idea is, if you're basing...
The Black Panthers are not the same as the Ku Klux Klan. The Black Panthers didn't go around lynching white people just for being white. The Ku Klux Klan would go around lynching black people just for being black. The Black Panther Party was an organization of self-defense, defending black communities from police brutality. That's why they defended the community. It was from police brutality, creating equal opportunities. And the Brown Berets copied everything they saw the Black Panthers doing. The Brown Berets were heavily influenced by the Black Panthers. That's a fact. There was no such thing as the Brown Beret before the Black Panthers came around. So the Brown Berets got their blueprint from the Black Panthers, but to compare the Black Panthers to a racist group like the Ku Klux Klan only shows your ignorance. You can't listen. The Black Panthers didn't go to white communities, lynching white people and burning down their communities. They didn't do that. They wasn't attacking random white people like the Ku Klux Klan would attack random black people just for being black. This shows your ignorance, Sonny.
In your whole argument based on race or nationality or whatever you want to call it, then I think your argument's flawed.
This guy don't even know history. Imagine a guy in his 60s who don't even know history. Crazy.
In every race, every creed, every orientation, there's certain individuals that exceed expectations. They're smarter, they figure things out, or it's not based on the color of your skin. And that's FBA's problem. They think, oh, well, he's black, we did this. So let's erase everybody else's history, let's erase everybody else's glory, so that we can.
FBA ain't never erased history. The Spanish conquistadors who colonized Mexico, the Spanish conquistadors who conquered your people are the ones who erase history. I'm telling you, when you listen to this dude talk, is nothing but ignorance. He said that FBAs are going around erasing history. No, the Spanish conquistadors and the Europeans in general are the ones who erase history. Let's get it. Let's get your facts straight, Sonny. Foundational Black Americans have never erased anybody's history. The Spanish conquistadors and the British, they're responsible for erasing history. You know, first, this is what they do first. First, they come in, they pillage, and they conquer the land, they colonize the land, and then they rewrite the history. That's what Europeans are known for, not black folks.
Individuals that exceed expectations. They're smarter, they figure things out.
Let me say this. The Spanish conquistadors erased a lot of history in Mexico, mainly the black history in Mexico. And not just in Mexico, the Spanish conquistadors erased black history all over Latin America, just like the British, the Europeans in general, erased a lot of history, black history and history of other groups. So that's a European mindset. Huh? But this fool said FBA, this fool fixed his mouth to say that FBA is somehow erasing people's history, mainly the Raza's history. Come on, Vato.
It's not based on the color of your skin. And that's FBA's problem. They think, oh, well, he's black, we did this. So let's erase everybody else's history, let's erase everybody else's glory, so that we can, so the blacks, FBAs can feel better about themselves. And what kind of group tears down other groups to make themselves feel better about themselves? You know, the simple fact of the matter is, all of us have put something into this United States. God has obviously made us different colors, different creeds, different hairstyles, different everything. For a reason. There's a reason for this. Blacks, FBI's even claim to be the oldest humans in the world. There was a few years back, a lady that was found.
No, blacks are the original people. That's just a fact. And we can debate about that for sure. Blacks are the oldest people on planet Earth. That is a fact, right? Even when you listen to the anyway, we'll get into that later.
In Africa, her bones were built, and they were saying that it was a Negro. At least that's what FBA says.
Africa. What's in Africa? Dark-skinned, melanated people. Whites came to Africa later. They came to America later.
I read up on it, and it was a Neanderthal. Before there was melanated skin and the eyes.
He said that it was a Neanderthal. So he's trying to say that Neanderthal Europeans predate blacks. Like, this dude is a fool, man. He's a fool.
Line of eyes, and before all that, it was just basically a caveman, a female caveman bone they found in the African region.
White people couldn't even survive the weather in Africa back in those days. You know, they couldn't survive the extreme heat in Africa back in those days. Like, what are you talking about, Sonny? Like, Sonny's very ignorant when it comes to history. He's trying to convince us that it was a Neanderthal European that was the first human being ever discovered in the continent of Africa.
It doesn't mean that they were black. So all people do not originate from the black culture or black people or black DNA.
Sonny, you got black DNA. If Sonny did a DNA test right now, you will see that he has Afro or blood that can trace back to Africa. That is a fact. If Sonny did a DNA test right now, a lot of his DNA, some of his DNA will trace back to where? To where? Africa, Sonny.
And that's the funny part is they will use that DNA. All the DNA proves that everybody came from blacks. That's one of the arguments, right? But when you ask them for their DNA about being indigenous Indians, then they're flawed. Oh, DNA is flawed. It can't tell you nothing.
No, you have some black people who don't have blood ties to these indigenous tribes, but then you have some black people who do. Not all black people are the same, Sonny. Not all black people are the same. Like I said, only 5%. They only brought 5% of the African slaves to the place called the United States. We only got 5% of the African slaves. The majority of your African slaves that came during the transatlantic slave trade, the overwhelming majority of them went to Latin America, the Caribbean, Central and South America. Only 5% came to the United States. So like I said, you got some black people who don't have blood ties to these native tribes. Then you have some black people who do. You know what I mean? Not all black people are the same. There's different tribes of black people.
Just like they say their ancestors, indigenous Indians, to the Americas. Okay, they're saying they were the first ones here, and there was no American Indians, and they were black. Okay. Well, now they're asking for reparations. Okay. Indians got reparations. The reason American Indians got reparations is because not only did they enslave them, but there was a genocide. They were killing off all Indians.
Just like they killed, I don't even want to say the word, just like they unalived a lot of black people. And the reason why blacks made better slaves than Indians, this is just the facts. Blacks were bigger and stronger, so they made better slaves. Everybody knows that. Study the history of slavery. Blacks were naturally bigger and stronger than the natives. So blacks made the better slaves. They could lift heavier stuff. They could work longer. That's why they wanted blacks to do the slavery all across Latin America, because of the physical strength of the blacks, because of their physical attributes. They were better slaves just based on their physical strength. They could build things faster. They could work longer. And if you notice, those diseases killed off the majority of the natives who died from those diseases that the Europeans brought over. The blacks somehow were able to endure a lot of those diseases that the Indians brought because of our immune system was stronger. Study the history. You ain't got to take my word for it. The blacks were able to endure a lot of those diseases that the Europeans brought with them. Those diseases killed off a large population of the natives. So the majority of your natives died off because of those diseases that the Europeans brought. The blacks were able to withstand and endure they were able to withstand and endure these harsh working conditions, and they were able to, survive these diseases that the Europeans brought. So the Europeans noticed that. They said, hold on, the blacks got a stronger immune system, and they're bigger and stronger, and they can work longer and harder. So Black slaves were worth way more than the native slaves just based on their physical attributes and their physical strength. Study history. You ain't got to take my word, family. Make sure that you guys bless the like button, support the cash out. Let's get the show rolling, man. Get them likes up, man.
They stole their land. There's differences between the blacks and the natives. That's why they were giving reparations. Now, I'm not approving of the reparations that they gave them, okay, the American Indians.
Yeah, most of the natives were taken out by diseases. The blacks were able to survive those diseases. That's the difference.
I'm sure if I go into my history, and I go into my family, I'm sure there's reparations for me. I haven't done it. Because I really don't care about it. I don't think it's right. That's just me. And I know I'm going to piss off some of my Indian people. But the facts are facts. Okay? You can't have it one way and then say it's something else. What else do they do? It's case in point. Red Supreme harps on hip hop a lot. That his fame to glory. That's his. We created hip hop. That's why nobody's better than us. That's why we are in complete command, because we know all the intricacies and whatever that word is. You know what I'm talking about. We know all the ins and outs, and that's why we're better at rap, because we're the ones.
Well, we created rap. Rap comes from FBA culture, 100%. If you listen to the early records in hip hop, they were sampling oldies. They would sample oldie records, right? And I've showed you videos. There's videos of us breakdancing in the 1920s and 30s, rhyming over beats. You can't show me one video of a Latino doing any of that in the 1940s. Latinos started breakdancing and rhyming once they got around foundational Black Americans. Prior to their contact with us, you didn't see them doing any of that. If you listen to the music that Latinos created in the 1940s and 50s, then listen to the music that foundational Black Americans created in the 40s and 50s. It's a dead giveaway. Hip hop does not come from Latin culture. It does not. It comes from foundational Black American culture, hands down. Look at the music that FBA created in the 40s and 50s, and look at the music that Latinos created in the 40s and 50s. Come on, homie, it's a dead giveaway. This is not even up for debate. It's not even up for debate at this point. It's a foolish argument.
Now, if you go by that logic, then what happened to brain surgeons and people that do transfusions? He said that they created it. They invented it. So why are they not the leading open heart surgeons throughout the world?
A Black person did the first open heart surgery. Damn, this dude is ignorant, man. A Black man did the first blood transfusion and the first open heart surgery. This is a known fact. It's crazy that this old man is just clueless when it comes to history. It shows his ignorance.
Right, and then it would go for everything, right? Since they were apparently the leaders and the ones that made everything happen throughout the world and throughout.
Do you understand that Europeans stole a lot of things and took credit for it, Sonny? The same way that the Europeans, the Spanish conquistadors, erased a lot of your people's history. Well, they erased the history of everybody that they encountered. That's what Europeans are known for doing. They conquer your land, they steal everything, then they take credit for everything that you created. That's what Europeans are known for. They did it all over the world, not just in Mexico. They took this mindset with them everywhere they went. They colonized, they pillaged, they erased the history, then they rewrite the history. That's what Europeans are known for doing. Study history. You will see the same things that I'm talking about if you just study history for yourself. Europeans are known for erasing people's history. And then they take credit for everything that you do.
History, then why are they not leading at everything? Now, you can't take the blacks' contribution to society from them. I'm not trying to.
Just like we're not trying to take nobody else's contribution to society. We're just telling the truth about history. If anybody took something away from Mexicans, it was the Europeans, the Spanish conquistadors, not black people. We never took anything from Mexicans. Never. But the Spanish conquistadors, they did.
But one of the first things that they do, especially particularly FBA, if you do not agree with them, no matter what color you are, you can be brown, you can be black, you can be yellow, you can be green, purple. If you do not agree with them, you're a racist. They're going to call you a racist. Just because you do not believe in the same thing they believe in. And that to me, that's comical that you would call your own people racist, right? You would say that because they're blacks, they're racist. They don't believe in what you believe in, so you're racist. And it means that. It's just these people like Red Supreme are very intelligent. They have the potential to really learn and really bring something to the table and maybe really help some people. Maybe empower the people with some truth. But what they do is they read into a book and then follow another book and another book, and then pretty soon they're going in the wrong direction. And they start to believe all that little false narratives. Like they got one big one about California, right? California, the name of California. Well, they base it on, and I know what this is. This is actually.
Do you know that a lot of black people played a major role in founding Los Angeles? A lot of your founders from Los Angeles were black people. A lot of Mexicans don't know that because their history, their understanding of history comes from the Europeans, the conquistadors. A lot of Mexicans didn't know that a lot of blacks played a major role in the building and the funding and founding Los Angeles. This is a fact, and I'm gonna give you the evidence. I'm gonna show you the video. I read this in books, but there's YouTube videos about it now, so I can give you the visual instead of just talking about it. But if you look at the original names and the people who founded Los Angeles, half of those people were black. And if you want to talk about Califia, the name of California, we can get into that as well.
They base it on, and I know what this is. This is actually a Spaniard storyteller wrote a book, a memoir, not a memoir, but a book or some kind of short story talking about this Nubian queen named California. Now, it was a fictional story. So this Spaniard he actually wrote it on the beach. He sat there and wrote it on the beach. And
Spanish people don't give blacks credit for anything. Every now and then you will find one who might be honest about history, but they're not going to just give us credit for something. They're not going to do that. Spanish people take the glory for themselves while erasing everybody else's history. That's what they're known for. But every now and then you'll get one who might be honest about history. Like some of those Spanish explorers, some of those Spanish settlers said when they first came to the Americas, they saw dark-skinned people. The same type of people that they saw in Africa, they saw them in the Americas when they showed up. Some of these Spanish settlers were honest about the people that they saw once they first landed, once they touched down on American soil. Some of them were honest about the people they saw and how those people actually looked.
And it must have been a short story. And he decided, he had heard that name California somewhere. Californian or California. There's a different tweet to it, but it's California. I forget how they
keep in mind, California was only Mexico for 27 years. California was Mexico from 1821 to 1848. So California was only Mexico for 27 years. Let me repeat that. From 1821 to 1848, that's when California was Mexico. So it was under Mexico's rule for 27 years. Prior to that, the Spanish ruled Cali. Prior to that, the indigenous tribes owned the land prior to the Spanish showing up. So when they say, "Oh, Cali was Mexico," it was only Mexico for 27 years, bro. Prior to that, the Spanish owned it. Prior to the Spanish owning it, it was owned by many indigenous tribes. It was only Cali. Mexico owned Cali for 27 years. That's a very short period of time. That was a short run. That was a very short run. So when they say, "Oh, Cali was Mexico," they make it seem like they owned California for centuries when it was only 27 years.
And he wrote a story about a Nubian queen in utopia of just women. They were the warriors, they were the queens, they were everything.
And the crazy part about it, not to stop the video, Florida was Spain ruled Florida too. Around the same time when Spain sold Florida in 1821. So Florida became a part of the United States later on in the game. Prior to 1821, the state of Florida was owned by the Spaniards. But guess what? When the United States took over Mexico, excuse me, my bad. I believe it was 1821 when the United States purchased Florida from Spain. It was 1821. Prior to that, the Spanish ruled it. And then in 1848, 1849, the United States took over California and a lot of the other states that Mexico once owned. But Mexico only owned those states for like 20-something years. Don't get it twisted. So they don't have a long history of owning California. And let me say this again. I said it before. If California was still under Mexico's rule, Mexicans wouldn't want to leave there. They would be fleeing Cali by the millions if it was still under Mexico's rule. Right? So there's no point in saying it used to be Mexico, because if California was still Mexico, Mexicans would be fleeing by the millions, just like they are fleeing Mexico by the millions. So it makes no sense. California had no development when it was under Mexico's rule. There was nothing there when it was under Mexico's rules. California became a powerhouse when the United States took over, when the United States developed it. And I'm going to show you the cities in California that blacks helped to develop, mainly Los Angeles. I'm gonna give you guys that video in a few more minutes.
It was utopia, and it was based on a woman's island or land. So he named California through that story. But if you get it from the blacks will tell you that California was named after a black queen, a Nubian queen, a fictional Nubian queen. But any of us that know Los Angeles, what is Los Angeles? That means the angels in Spanish.
Because the Spanish owned California before it became Mexico. Spanish owned California before it became Mexico. And prior to that, the indigenous tribes owned it. So the Spaniards stole California from the indigenous tribes. That's what happened. Then it became Mexico for 27 years. Then it became a part of the United States in 1848, 1849. I'm giving you the history of Cali.
Santa Ana, all these different San Diego.
And Spanish is a European language. Spanish is not a Mexican language. Spanish is a European language. Spain is in Europe. Those are European names, not Mexican names. Spanish is not the original language of Mexicans. Europeans stole your language and culture. Just like they stole culture and history from black folks, they stole a lot of culture and history from Mexicans. Spanish is not the original language of the Mexican people. You guys were forced to speak Spanish because Mexicans enslaved you and conquered your land. So you guys were forced to speak Spanish, but Spanish is not your original language. The Europeans erase a lot of your history, just like they erase a lot of our history. And that's what Europeans are known for doing.
Santa Clara, Santa Clarita, all these are raza-based, or let's just say Spaniard-based.
It's not raza, that's Spanish. Like, how ignorant are you, Sonny? Mexicans ain't the only people who speak Spanish. Mexicans speak Spanish because the Spanish conquistadors enslaved you and colonized and conquered your land. They dominated your people, stole your language, and forced you to speak Spanish. Spanish is not a raza language. Spanish is not a raza language. Spanish is a white man's language. A white man's language that Mexicans were forced to speak because the Spanish colonized your people and they dominated your people and forced you to speak Spanish, just like we were forced to speak English because they stripped us of our language, just like they stripped your people of your language. That's what Europeans are known for doing. But don't get it twisted for 1 second. Spanish is not a raza language. It is a white man's language.
Santa Ana, all these different San Diego, Santa Clara, Santa Clarita, all these are raza-based, or let's just say Spaniard-based names. And like I said, California was named after a fictional character, Nubia Queen. It wasn't actually named after a black queen. It was fictional by a Spaniard. But they will just take that little bit and forget the real truth to what the real truth to the story was. Because it doesn't fit their narrative. It doesn't fit them being these great gods or demigods or whatever they want to be considered. Now I had somebody talking to me about it and said, if you were to give the blacks a power, what is it that they want? I know prior to Obama, they used to say a lot that all they wanted was fairness. They wanted equal rights. They wanted a black president, that there would never be a black president in their lifetime. And then here comes Obama. And I will be honest, completely honest, I didn't vote for Obama. I thought Obama was basically a kid you're handing the keys to a Ferrari to. Because I didn't ever heard of him, didn't know anything about him, didn't really know his...
Well, how could you look at him like you giving a kid the keys to a Ferrari if you didn't know nothing about him? You didn't want him to be president because he was black. So how can you disqualify him if you didn't know him? See, this shows you Sonny's ignorance. I didn't think that Obama was qualified, but really, I didn't know nothing about him. So how are you going to say that he's not qualified if you didn't know anything about him? So you didn't want Obama to be president just based on the fact that he was black. You disqualified him and didn't even know him, didn't even know his credentials. This just proves my point that you didn't want him to be president because he's a black man, not because he wasn't fit for the position. You disqualified him and said that he's not worthy of the position based on the fact that he was a black man. Come on, Sonny, I got common sense. I can see through muddy waters. I can see through the fog.
Policies and president, that there would never be a black president in her lifetime. And then here comes Obama. And I will be honest, completely honest, I didn't vote for Obama. I thought Obama was basically a kid you're handing the keys to a Ferrari to. Because I didn't ever heard of him, didn't know anything about him, didn't really know his policies. And I learned to regret my decision because I think he was a good president. And to be completely honest, some of it was based on color. And I'm being completely honest, but like I said,
he just said it was based on color. We know because Latinos have an anti-black mindset. They get it from the Spanish conquistadors. So we know that you disqualified him just for being a black man. See, he don't mind a white man being the president because he's used to white men running things. He wasn't comfortable with a black man being in a position of power, so he disqualified the black man because he wanted a white man to run the country. So I told you, and I never even watched this for. This is my first time even watching the whole video. The first time I seen this video, I watched like 5 minutes of it, and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna cook Sonny. I'm gonna use this first 5 minutes of the video and cook him." I never even got to this part of the video, but I already knew that because I understand the mindset of a lot of Chicanos and Latinos. Their mindset is anti-black. They get it from the Spanish conquistadors. Because keep in mind, black folks ain't never took nothing from Mexicans or Latinos. We never took your land. We never stripped you of your language. Black folks ain't never took anything from Latinos, but Latinos hate black people more than a white man. Latinos have more of a hatred for the black man than they do for the European oppressor. I'm giving you the facts.
Regret. I didn't vote for Obama. I thought Obama was basically a kid you're handing the keys to a Ferrari to. Because I didn't ever heard of him, didn't know anything about him, didn't really know his policies. And I learned to regret my decision because I think he was a good president.
Okay.
And to be completely honest, some of it was based on color. And I'm being completely honest, but like I said, I'm a man enough to admit I was wrong. He was a great president.
Okay, now he said he admit that he was wrong. But we see now you understand the root of the problem. It's anti-blackness. And where did they get that anti-blackness from? The Spanish conquistador. Now, at least he was man enough to admit that he was wrong, and he disqualified Obama just based on the fact that he was black. Because in Sonny's mind, ain't no way a black man can run this country. A black man ain't intelligent. A black man ain't competent enough to run this country. Where did he get that belief system from? He got it from the Spanish conquistadors. Now, at least he was real enough to admit that. So I'll give him props on that.
Some of it was based on color. And I'm being completely honest, but like I said, I'm a man enough to admit I was wrong. He was a great president. But when you got a time when more blacks or millionaires than any other race right now, and this has to do with hip hop, they've exploited that money more than anybody in hip hop, and more power to you.
We fought to have hip hop. There in the 90s, they were trying to shut hip hop down, and black people fought to keep hip hop alive. You didn't see Latinos out there marching and fighting for hip hop. Black people had to fight to keep hip hop alive because at one particular time they were trying to shut hip hop down. Everything that we got in this country, we fought for it. Nobody handed us anything. We fought for everything that we got. That's the reality of it. Now, we got 2 more minutes of this video, then we're going to move on to something else. Shout out to my girl, Evelyn, for blessing us with a 20 on the Cash App. I appreciate you, Evelyn, for the 20. Shout out to my girl from the Choctaw Nation. Shout out to my girl, TW. She sent us a 40, and she said, this is from the Choctaw Nation. I appreciate you, sweetie, for blessing us with that 40. Shout out to Evelyn as well. Let's get some more people to become contributors and supporters for some of this beautiful game delivered by what? King Supreme.
You can get the better, homie. Ain't nobody tripping. But that doesn't mean you created it. Doesn't mean you invented it by yourself.
Wow, doesn't mean we created it or invented it. This is how foolish, Sonny. Black people, we are the culture. Without blacks, there would be no hip hop. If you remove Latinos from the United States, there will be hip hop. Listen, we created jazz. Foundational Black Americans created jazz. We created blues. We created rock and roll. We created country music. We created gospel. We created R&B. We created funk music. We created hip hop. So we created all these music genres, but somehow we needed some Latinos who come from a Spanish speaking culture. We needed them to create hip hop. You sound crazy. Listen to the music that blacks made in the 60s, and then you listen to the music that Latinos made in the 60s. Latino music never had an urban influence. It never did. Latino's urban influence comes from FBA culture 100%. You can go all the way back to the 40s and the 50s and look at the music that FBA created. Then you look at the music that Latinos created. Foundational Black Americans, we've never been influenced by Latino music, but Latinos have always been influenced by our music. So why would we need some people who's always been influenced by our music to help us to create a music genre? It doesn't make sense. 2 plus 2 ain't 40, it's 4. 2 plus 2 is not 40, Sonny. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Anybody with common sense knows that hip hop does not come from Latin culture at all. Where does reggaeton come from? Reggaeton comes from reggae. Where does reggae come from? The Jamaicans in Jamaica said that they were heavily influenced by Black Americans. They listened to our music and they created reggae. Then they created reggae. And reggaeton was heavily influenced by reggae. But if you trace, if you look at the origins of all of this music, it all comes from FBA. We influenced Jamaicans, and Jamaican music influenced Latinos. Matter of fact, the Black Latinos are the ones who created reggaeton. The Black Panamanians are the ones who created reggaeton. If you want to be honest about it. But all of this music traces back to foundational Black Americans if you study the history of it.
Has to do with hip hop. They've exploited that money more than anybody in hip hop, and more power to you. The more you can get, the better, homie. Ain't nobody tripping. But that doesn't mean you created it. Doesn't mean you invented it by yourself.
Now you're trying to erase it. We didn't create it by ourselves. We created all these other music genres, but we needed some Latinos who come from a Spanish-speaking culture, who music never influenced urban culture. We needed them to create hip hop. Man, this is crazy. And you talk about being a Spanish conquistador.
There's this guy named Africa Bautisma.
All right, let's go. Enough of this guy. Enough of this guy, man. You know.
Recently, La Presidenta.
All right, here is going to tell you how Mexico recognized their Black population as Afro-Indigenous. Of course, the Spaniards brought slaves from Africa, but you already had Black indigenous people in Mexico prior to the Spanish conquistadors showing up. Let's get it. Listen carefully to what this guy is saying. And everything he's saying, you ain't got to just, this is just a YouTube video, because there was a Mexican dude. So, you're just showing videos. You can study what's said in the videos, and it traces back to the real history. The Black people in Mexico were recognized as Afro-Indigenous because they were in Mexico and the Americas prior to any European showing up. And this Mexican guy right here, he was just real enough to tell the truth because he was smart enough to study the history. So he didn't come with no hatred. He just stuck to the historical facts.
Recently, La Presidenta de Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, signed 2 edicts into law, which are breathtaking to say the least. What she did and what she signed into the Mexican Constitution are 2 parts. The first part was that the indigenous people within Mexico of many different tribes will now have the ability to have their own sovereign nations. Now, bear with me here. So basically, a commission is set up to recognize those indigenous nations within Mexico.
Shout out to Miss T. Wilson. Miss T. Wilson, I appreciate you for the 40, sweetie. Let's get some of you brothers, man, because so far the ladies been supporting the show. Ain't none of you brothers been supporting the show. Come on, brothers. We got to do better. The ladies can't be outshining y'all with the support, man. But shout out to the ladies for supporting this content in a major way. Let's go.
Recently, La Presidenta de Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, signed 2 edicts into law, which are breathtaking to say the least. What she did and what she signed into the Mexican Constitution are 2 parts. The first part was that the indigenous people within Mexico of many different tribes will now have the ability to have their own sovereign nations. Now, bear with me here. So basically, a commission is set up to recognize those indigenous nations within Mexico and teach them and show them how they can rule autonomously and set up their own rulership over their own people, because there's a lot of indigenous different tribes within Mexico. The second part of that edict that was signed into the Mexican Constitution recognizes, and hear me out here, Afro-Indigenous. So, and that basically states that written into the Mexican Constitution, it is now law that the Afro-Indigenous are recognized as full citizens of Mexico and are afforded their indigenous status. And then she went on to state that Mexico recognizes that Afro-Indigenous people were on this continent hundreds of years before the Spaniards stepped 1 foot on the soil. It completely changes the narrative of what we've been taught. It completely changes the idea that Columbus was here and there's just Mexicans. It flips it right on its head. Everything is out the door. This is a very intelligent woman. And what she has stated are what people on different social media platforms have been saying for years. Black man was already here. The black man was already here. We didn't come in slave ships. That's not feasible. It would have taken too many ships. They would lose too many people. But if you're taken from Mexico, South America, and taken off the coast and sat off the coast for a couple months and then brought up and dropped off in Boston, that makes it a hell of a lot more feasible, doesn't it? Afro-Indigenous were here hundreds of years before the Spaniards showed up. I'll put this into perspective. The English Bible, the most widely sold book in history, the Bible, New Testament, Old Testament, you can go back in that Bible to the beginning of time of man. Adam, Eve, his wife, conceived from the rib of Adam, and the Creator took that rib. Their children, Cain and Abel, and how that conflict and one brother slew the other. The creation of the earth, the waters, the fish in the deep, the firmament. Okay, enough Bible lesson for today. But yet we can't go back before Columbus. What was the black man's history? How did he get here? The Phoenician? The Israelite?
So, and yes, the blacks in Mexico are recognized as, being Afro-Indigenous. They were already there way before the Europeans showed up. Let's get into this. Now, this is Snoopy Badass right here. He spoke on, said 80% of Latino gangbangers are racist. And yes, there's a lot of truth to that, because you can go to communities in Los Angeles where there's no blacks, like El Monte, La Puente, East LA. And those are some of the most racist Mexicans you can meet. And they don't even live around black people. They don't even live around black people. And they got a deep hatred for black people. I want you to check out what Snoopy Badass is going to say. No, a lot of people say, oh, he's this, I don't care about these gangbangers, because gangbangers are irrelevant in 2026. It's time for black people to do something different. That blood and cripping, we've been there and done that. We gotta reach out to do bigger and better things. All that blood and cripping ain't did nothing but separate black communities. Most of these black communities in Los Angeles are majority Latino because of these open border policies. And, the Latinos will come over here illegally to have anchor babies. What is an anchor baby? That means that your parents came over here illegally to have you in America so that the children can get citizenship. Now, I don't know why you would allow somebody to come over here illegally and have a baby and give their child citizenship. At that point, you're rewarding people for breaking the law. That's exactly what it is. You're rewarding people for breaking the law. Somebody crosses the border illegally and have a baby in this country, that child should not be a citizen. At that point, you are rewarding people for breaking the damn law. That's how Mexicans overpopulated California, because they share a border with California, so they would come over by the millions for the sole purpose of having babies for birthright citizenship. These are just the facts. I don't care who gets mad, it's the truth. And the 14th Amendment was not created for border hoppers, illegal immigrants. The 14th Amendment was created for the foundational Black Americans after we built this country. Right? That's why the 14th Amendment was created, to protect the Black folks who were the children of the slaves who built the nation. But for some reason, they allowed illegal immigrants to benefit from the 14th Amendment, when the 14th Amendment should only be for American citizens, not for border hoppers. That's crazy.
All right, Snoopy. So just to finalize what we talked about with this whole street code or F the streets movement going.
And people gonna say Snoopy's this. I don't really care about that, man. I'm just dealing with the facts. What he said a lot of things that are true. Now, I don't care about his prison status. I don't care about none of that. I'm only dealing with talking points. I'm only dealing with the facts. So don't come up in here, oh, Snoopy's this, shut up. I don't care. Take your street codes back to the street. Take your street codes to prison. We don't care about that over here. It's time for Black people to elevate to bigger and better things. This gangbang culture has done absolutely nothing for the Black community. Absolutely nothing. If anything, gang culture has set us back 100 years, if you want to be honest.
What else did you think about this whole situation, specifically when it comes to the West Coast?
Man, it's time for LA to do something new, bro. You know what I'm saying? That these old ass crusty gangs is played the fuck out. The street code is dead. Ain't nobody really honoring it. If people was really honoring it, homie, then guess what? Would nobody be on the internet talking about hood politics? Because what was created in the dark was to stay in the dark. You know what I'm saying? Feel me? It's too much selective politicking. And I want to give a shout out to my boy Bandana the Rag. Feel me? The statement when I said that Crips didn't even fight the Sudanos for the blue rag, and the same for Bloods and the North Daniels, that was actually his quote. You feel me? And I felt it when he told me, homie, and I just feel like I have to come on here and tell you and repeat it, homie, because that's real though, bro. These dudes don't stand on nothing, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I want to let everybody know, Red Mafia family is not a gang. You feel me? Red Mafia family is a wall. It's Snoopy Badass's wall. It's for the people that I love and the ones that love me back. Feel what I'm saying? Feel me? For me to know that you not an enemy and you friend, not foe, you down with the Red Mafia family movement, homie. It's not we don't, even though the color is red, we are not part of no Bloods, none of that bullshit. I don't want connected to any of that because I don't believe in it. It's too much karmatic baggage that come with that. You feel me? Niggas is receiving karma for things that happened before they was born by claiming alliances to all this bullshit. RMF stands as long as an independent brand and a wall and a family for people that with me. You know what I'm saying? And if you RMF, you definitely feel like
fair use, man. Fair use, man. I mean, what he's saying is true. Gangbanging has set us back, because all it did was divide Black people. So when these clowns come up and saying it was to protect the community, man, them Crips wasn't protecting no community. Bloods in Los Angeles formed to protect themselves from the Crips. Bloods, when you think about Bloods in Los Angeles, these are gangs who were anti-Crip. They didn't want to become Crips. So all the non-Crip gangs in Los Angeles came together to form the Blood Alliance. The Crips were bullying people into turning Crips. They wasn't protecting no community. I got to be honest about history. So when they say, oh, the Crips formed to protect the community, that's a bold-faced lie. The Black Panthers formed to protect the community, not no Crips. That's a bold-faced lie, and I don't care who get mad about that. The Crips were not protecting the community. They was bullying other Black people. Stop it.
street code and the streets, bro. Straight up. And I wanted to make that clear for me. And Bloods, y'all didn't fight the North Daniels and the Blood Dogs for the red rags. So shut up when you see me with my red rag, RMF, nigga. And that's where I
Now,
stand with
Snoopy,
that.
I'm glad you kind of went back there because there was a question that I had to ask you because
What's
of
up
a
with
whole
it?
topic that's
Holla at
really
me.
turning up about the West Coast and these podcasts, right? So, what is up? A lot of people across the
Yeah,
country.
gang banging is dumb at this point. We got to move on to bigger and better things as people. You know, these gang bangers coming to the internet to talk about hood politics and gang politics. Them dudes are stuck on stupid. Gang banging has set our community back 100 years. Period. You got cats in LA right now who put gang banging before their blackness, which is sad. You got cats in LA who put gang banging, they put gang banging before their blackness, before their race, before their people. That's truly pathetic.
They really don't understand the friction between black and brown out there on the West Coast. Like, what is the deal with that? Because recently there was a podcaster who said some very disrespectful and derogatory things towards the black community when talking about blueface. He used a derogatory term, right? And then it started this whole thing, man. So, what is the situation out there?
And I'm sorry to be the one to say this, and but 75% of Hispanic gangbangers from California don't like blacks. I'm just tired of why lie? They don't like us. Like we're not gonna like. And I'm not saying I have a problem with the Sorellos or the Mexican gangbangers, but I know they don't like me. I know they don't like us. So, of course that they're going to try to act like they like us to get on our platforms and to be a part of our rap culture. Of course they're going to act like it, but in reality, they don't like us. They don't, bro. So it ain't even no point.
He's right about that. Mexicans will pretend to be cool with you because they want to infiltrate hip hop and make money off of our culture. So they'll pretend to like you, even though a lot of them don't like you. Right? You might have like 15% of them, or maybe 20 at the most, who are actually cool with you, but the other 80% of them don't like you. They pretend to be cool with black people to infiltrate hip hop culture so that they can make money from the culture. That's exactly what it is. Snoopy Badass is 100% correct. But in reality, they don't really like you like that for real.
Like, and I'm not saying I have a problem with, and I'm sorry to be the one to say this, and but 75% of Hispanic gangbangers from California don't like blacks. I'm just tired of why lie? They don't like us. Like we're not gonna like. And I'm not saying I have a problem with the Sorellos or the Mexican gangbangers, but I know they don't like me. I know they don't like us. So, of course that they're going to try to act like they like us to get on our platforms and to be a part of our rap culture. Of course they're going to act like it, but in reality, they don't like us. They don't, bro. So it ain't even no point, what I'm saying, to even be fake with that, bro. 75% of Sudanio gangbangers don't like us, don't like blacks, bro. And that's just the way it is, bro. I know that, like, it's been many a times, right? Let me give you one of my experiences. They'd be cool when it's just you and them, or it's just two of them, but most of the time, just them. But as soon as they get in a crowd of their homies, they're gonna turn on you if you're the only one like you there, bro. You're gonna feel the shift in their energy, bro. It's not gonna be the same person they was when they was by themselves, bro. They act funny when they get with their people, bro. That's just the fact. That's just the facts, bro. And this ain't me bashing nobody. It's the truth.
It's just the truth. When Latinos had low numbers, when there was only a few Mexicans in South Central, they wasn't on no racist BS. But once they began to overpopulate certain areas in the 90s, they began to show their true colors. But if you go back to the 70s and the 80s, Mexicans didn't have no smoke for black people. Why? Because they didn't have the numbers like that. They started showing their racism in Compton and like South Central once their numbers began to grow. Once they began to overpopulate blacks in certain areas, that's when they began to show what? Their true colors. Snoopy Badass is not lying. He's giving you the irrefutable facts.
be fake with that, bro. 75% of Sudanio gangbangers don't like us, don't like blacks, bro. And that's just the way it is, bro. I know that, like, it's been many a times, right? Let me give you one of my experiences. They'd be cool when it's just you and them, or it's just two of them, but most of the time just them. But as soon as they get in a crowd of their homies, they're gonna turn on you if you're the only one like you there, bro. You're gonna feel the shift in their energy, bro. It's not gonna be the same person they was when they was by themselves, bro. They act funny when they get with their people, bro. That's just the fact. That's just the facts, bro. And this ain't me bashing nobody. It's the truth.
Why though? Like it seems
Because
such
that's how
like
they
an
were
outdated
raised. Look
situation.
it.
Like why is it still like that?
The 48 laws of power. They'll pretend to be cool with you to extract resources from the hip hop community so that they can make money. But in reality, they don't like you. They'll tolerate you and pretend to be cool with you to infiltrate your culture. What did the Spanish conquistadors do? They pretended to be cool with the people when they first showed up. But the whole time they had a plan to take over the land. What did the British do when they came to the Americas? They pretended to be cool with the native, but the whole time they had a plan to take over the land. So Mexicans are no different. They have Spanish conquistador blood. They pretend to be cool with blacks who infiltrate hip hop culture so that they can make money, so that they can extract resources from our culture. That's why they pretend to be cool with you. Because Mexicans know if they came out in a rap game being racist, it wouldn't be a good look for them. We would have a whole lot of ammunition to say, look at these culture vultures. They hate blacks, but they want to be a part of the culture. So they'll pretend to be cool with you to infiltrate the culture to make money. Don't be fooled for 1 second, Foundation. I'm putting y'all up on game about the mindset of 80% of these Mexican Serranos, Southsiders. This is how they truly feel. And I don't care who gets mad about it. I'm just giving you the irrefutable facts.
Bro. It's not gonna be the same person they was when they was by themselves, bro. They act funny when they get with their people, bro. That's just the fact. That's just the facts, bro. And this ain't me bashing nobody. It's the truth.
Why though? Like it seems such
That's
like
how they
an
were
outdated
raised. Look
situation.
it.
Like why is it still like that?
That's how they were raised, bro. That's their household, bro. Like Mexican fathers, Hispanic fathers do not want their beautiful Hispanic daughter laid down with a black dude, bro. Look at that. That is a Hispanic father's nightmare.
But how come in Texas you can see that kind of there's issues sometimes, right? But
I can't
for the
speak on
most part,
Texas.
when it comes to like hip hop and the streets and anything like that,
I'm from LA. I don't know,
blacks
but
and
the
Hispanics
Texas
kind of get together. They get along. You know what I mean?
the Texas because they're more like blackwashed Hispanics. You know what I'm saying? They're like blackwashed Hispanics. You feel me? They're not feel me straight up essays like the ones out here in California. Like, you know what I'm saying? Feel me? But that's just the truth of it. Like, you know, I understand and I have to accept the fact that 75 to 80% of Sudanio gang members do not like blacks. And if they and I'm speaking on even these rapper ones, bro. Feel me? Like I said, they're gonna be respectful and be manipulative and act like they like us to be on our platforms or to get features or to be accepted in the rap because, like, you know, blacks got the keys to the hip hop shit. They know that they can't just be a blatantly NK killer. You know what I'm saying? And think they're gonna be. They can't just blatantly come out and say I don't like blacks and think they're gonna be a rapper. They can't do that, bro, because we run hip hop. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, of course they're gonna act like they like us to deal with as far as the music thing, but in reality, them and their homies, 75 to 85, 80% of them don't like us. That's just it's just the facts, bro. And everybody gonna agree with me with this, bro. They don't like us, bro. Feel me? They don't like us, bro. They don't like us, bro. I don't care what nobody say, bro. They don't like just like shout out Rich Rabbit too, homie. Just like Rich Rabbit from Playboys, LA. He's a black Southsider. They couldn't wait to throw him away. They couldn't wait. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't wait till he sneezed wrong and they gave him the boot. And I'm gonna keep it real. Probably the scariest thing to be is a black Southsider, man, because you wouldn't know because you're not getting away with anything, bro. I don't care what.
And I did a video on Rich Rabbit on my main channel on Red Supreme TV1. This black guy that's from a Mexican gang, and he was catching heat from his people, which were the Mexicans. But it's like, why would you join the Mexican gang when you understand their politics of anti-blackness? That makes no sense. Their allies are white supremacists in prison. So why would you join them knowing that you got to go against your own people once you get behind those walls, it makes no sense for a black person to be a Southsider. Basically, when you get behind those walls, you got to go against your own people because you run with a Mexican gang, and it makes no sense for a black person to do that. I've been talking about that for a long time, homie. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying? They couldn't wait till they don't like us, bro. They don't like us, bro. I don't care what nobody say, bro. They don't like, just like shout out Rich Rabbit too, homie. Just like Rich Rabbit from Playboys, LA. He's a black Southsider. They couldn't wait to throw him away. They couldn't wait. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't wait till he sneezed wrong and they gave him the boot. And I'm gonna keep it real. Probably the scariest thing to be is a black Southsider, man, because you wouldn't know, because you're not getting away with anything, bro. I don't care what nobody. They're not letting you get away with anything. It's gonna be somebody from your hood that just don't want you around, bro. And that's just how that go.
Now, Snoopy, I want you to clear this up too. Now, the impression online is that when it comes to the prisons too, like the blacks have to take like a back seat to everybody. Is that true from what you've seen?
What you mean? Well, when the blacks got to take a back seat. What you mean?
Yeah, like they're actually getting, not, man, I don't want it to sound worse than what it is, but the impression, like with Charleston White, he said that basically.
Charleston White don't know nothing about California prisons. If your idea of what goes on in California prisons comes from Charleston White, then you're just clueless to the facts. Charleston White is a troll. He don't know nothing about California prisons and politics. He might know to a certain extent, but he's never been there. So he's just coming with his own opinions based on what he heard some people say. But Charleston White don't know nothing about what's going on in California county jails or California prisons. Charleston White is a troll. He'll say anything for clicks and views.
On the West Coast, like you guys kind of like the black folks, they kind of have to, like, in prison, they have to be scared of like the Mexicans and stuff like.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. The Hispanics, the Hispanics outnumber the blacks everywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
It's always it's a lot of them. Nigga, they outnumber. They're everywhere on the streets. They're everywhere in the schools. They're everywhere.
Well, the reason why Mexicans outnumber blacks in California, because in the 90s, in the 80s and the 90s, millions of Mexicans were crossing the border illegally to have anchor babies, and their children became citizens, and a lot of their children joined gangs. So that boosted their numbers in population. That's why they outnumber blacks in Cali, because of crossing the border illegally, dumping anchor babies for birthright citizenship. And a lot of those babies became Southsiders. California prisons was once, at one particular time, blacks outnumbered everybody. But when you got all these Mexicans crossing the border and these women having these babies, millions of women are crossing the border and having these anchor babies, that adds to their membership in gangs. So if you got millions of people crossing the border having babies for birthright citizenship, eventually they're going to overpopulate everybody just because of those open border policies.
They're all in the prison system, they're everywhere. It's just more of them. But far as me saying that they punking the blacks, like, it's just more weakness that's obvious within the black cars than it is in the Hispanics, bro. The Hispanics are just more structured than blacks. You got the black card is cut up in like 50 million different cars of bum niggas. Like I'm just gonna say it, bro. Like niggas ain't niggas. Like niggas bums, bro. Like them niggas don't want to go to war with them SAs, bro. Niggas don't want to go with them niggas. I'm gonna keep it real. Like, I be thinking most blacks is scared of they scared of him. Because like the SAs, like let me give you a scenario, right?
The blacks ain't scared of Mexicans. They're just outnumbered in certain places, but they still go to war even when they're outnumbered. Now, you can't show me one majority black city in this country where Mexicans try to go to war with blacks. Blacks are only 8% of Los Angeles and like 6% of California. So I want you guys to check this out, man, and I want you guys to get a better understanding of what's going on. Blacks are only 8% of Los Angeles, and Mexicans are like 50-something% of Los Angeles, especially if you add in all these damn illegals that's over here too, along with the ones who are citizens. They're over 50% of Los Angeles. Blacks are only 6%, maybe 8% at the most of California's overall population. So it's easy for Mexicans to be tough in a place where they outnumber everybody. Now, if you go to, you can't show me one black majority city in the United States where Mexicans try to go to war with blacks. You're not going to see that. If you go to Atlanta, you're not going to see Mexicans trying to go to war with blacks. There's too many blacks out there. They're not going to bring that Southsider mentality from Cali to Georgia. It's not going to work over there. They'll get crushed. It's too many black people. Same thing in Chicago, the same thing in Detroit, even though you got a big Latino population in Chicago, but guess what? You also have a very large black population in Chicago. So Mexicans in Chicago can't be on the same time that Mexicans in California are on. Even though Mexicans in Chicago do beef with some black gangs out there, but not to the extent that it goes on in California. If you go to Philadelphia, you're not going to see Mexicans trying to beef with blacks. If you go to Baltimore, you're not going to see Mexicans trying to beef with blacks. You go to Jackson, Mississippi, you're not going to see Mexicans trying to beef with blacks. You go to Memphis, Tennessee, you're not going to see Mexicans trying to war with blacks. You go to Birmingham, Alabama, you're not going to see that. You go to St. Louis, Missouri, you're not going to see that. You know, you go to Washington, D.C., you're not going to see that. To make a long story short, what you see Mexicans doing in Los Angeles, they'll never go to war with blacks in a majority black city. It's not going to happen. So it's easy to be on some racist stuff when you're 50% of the population and you're going up against a population that's only 8%. That's pretty easy. It doesn't take cojones to do that. Anyway, let's get back to the clip. Let's get back to the content. A lot of people gonna get mad, but I don't give a damn because I'm telling the truth.
Niggas bums, bro. Like, them niggas don't want to go to war with them essays, bro. Niggas don't want to go with them niggas. I'm going to keep it real. Like, I be thinking most blacks is scared.
Same thing in New Orleans. Mexicans will never try to go to war with blacks in New Orleans. There's too many black people out there, man. It's easy to go to war with blacks when you're 50% of the city and they're only 8% of the city. That doesn't take cojones to do that.
They scared of them. Because, like, the essays, like, let me give you a scenario, right? The essays can, okay, a black hood can have been in LA for years, decades, right? Soon as an essay buy a few houses on the block in a hood, guess what? Now that's they hood. Y'all got to share the hood with the Hispanics. And the blacks don't go to war with them or nothing. I didn't see blacks not even go to war with them, right?
Well, that's false because there's a lot of blacks in LA that go to war with Mexicans, but I get what he's saying. Blacks should have never let them start barrios in their hoods. They should have never let that happen. Just like if you're black and you move to East LA, they're not going to let you start a Blood and Crip gang in East LA because Mexicans are very territorial. So what he's saying is, well, this is what I'm saying. Blacks should have never let Mexicans start barrios in a hood. Like, no, this area has one gang and one gang only. You're not going to start a barrio. The moment they tried to start a barrio, they should have crushed them. But blacks were so busy going to war with each other that they didn't pay attention to the Mexicans who were starting barrios in their neighborhoods. Meanwhile, if you go to Pico Union or East LA, the Mexicans ain't going to let you start no black gang in their barrios because Mexicans are very racist and territorial. Blacks didn't do the same thing. Blacks allowed Mexicans to start gangs in South Central and Inglewood and places like that. If blacks had the same mentality that Mexicans in East LA, La Puente, and El Monte, if we had the same mentality, we would have never allowed Mexicans to start barrios in our neighborhood. We would have crushed them the moment they tried to start a gang. I'm just giving you the irrefutable facts.
And when they do go to war, they always be friends with them first, right? But let a black family move on the block and say, man, we started our own crew right here. This is our hood too. They're going to be trying to mark them out, shoot them out, punk them, do every black.
He's right about that. If you move to East LA, if blacks move to East LA and try to start a barrio, the Mexicans ain't going to go for that. They're going to go to war over that. They don't want you to start a hood in a barrio. Shit. Mexicans in East LA firebombed black people just for living there. They didn't even want blacks living in their community. And these blacks wasn't even gangbangers. These were just everyday hardworking civilians who lived in East LA. And Mexicans firebombed their apartments just for living there. So if they're going to firebomb civilians for living there, you know they don't want no black gangs starting up over there. These are the facts. Mexicans are not going to let you start a black gang in their barrio. They're not.
But let a black family move on the block and say, man, we started our own crew right here. This our hood too. They're gonna be trying to mark them out, shoot them out, punk them, do every most blacks be cowards, bro. Black
That
gangbangers
doesn't
be
even make any sense.
that's what would happen. Most black gangbangers are cowards. That's why they're gangbangers. They can't. That's why they're gangbangers and they marks. What you say?
So you would treat your own people differently than you would treat anybody else.
Boy, blacks are scared of everybody but their own people, bruh.
That's wild,
They
man.
scared of
That's
everybody
wild.
but their own. They not gonna do nothing.
Blacks in South Central should have never let Mexicans start barrios in their hood. But guess what? When their population is growing, it's basically you're not going to be able to stop them. See, you don't have a black population growing in East LA like that. Now, if there was a lot of blacks just growing in large numbers in East LA, then you would see black gangs over there. Mexicans wouldn't be able to stop it. Well, it's kind of like the same thing in Los Angeles. It's like if you got a growing Latino population in your neighborhood, it's inevitable. Eventually, they're going to start a barrio because of their population is growing in your community. The black population ain't growing in Mexican communities, but Mexican populations, their population is growing in black communities. That's the difference. There's no growing black population in La Puente. There's no growing black population in East LA. There's no growing black population in El Monte. So it's going to be harder to establish a gang when you don't have a growing population in that area. Now, Mexicans, on the other hand, they have a growing population all over Los Angeles. They got a growing Latino Mexican population in black communities. That's how they were able to establish barrios in black communities in South Central. I'm just giving you guys the facts about history.
Man, any one of these hoods, a Hispanic can set up shop in their hood right there and then all them black gangbangers gonna work their way around them, bro. Scared of
That's
everybody
wild.
but their own. They not gonna do nothing. Man, any one of these hoods, a Hispanic can set up shop in their hood right there and then all them black gangbangers gonna work their way around them, bro. That's what I be trying to tell them, bro. The streets is dead. Ain't no street code. All this shit is an illusion, bro. Feel what I'm saying? Gangbangers are cowards,
Bro,
bro.
blacks are not scared. They were never scared of them. Blacks never perceived Mexicans to be a threat. That's the thing. Like when they and like even in my neighborhood, we seen these little small cliques and barrios starting up. You know, if we would have perceived them as a threat, we would have crushed them the moment that they tried to start a clique in our neighborhood. But when you think about it, I think that's exactly what blacks should have did, because guess what? If you try to start a gang in the predominant Mexican community, the Mexicans ain't gonna go for it. They're gonna all click up and ride on the blacks who are there to run them out of their neighborhood, because Mexicans are very racist and territorial. They're not gonna let you start a Crip and Blood hood in their barrio. They're not gonna do that.
If you a threat and they know they can't get away with, they gonna leave you alone, bro. Why you think gangbangers are scared of the police?
Of course, they can't do that in the Southeast. You don't have a big Mexican population in the Southeast like that. There, you got Mexicans there, because don't get it twisted. If you go to Atlanta, you're gonna see some Mexicans. If you go to the southeast region of the country, you're gonna see some Mexicans. The difference is they don't have the same numbers that they have in California, so they can't push a hard line over there because the numbers don't work in their favor over there. So they can never push this anti-black stuff in Alabama, Georgia, or South Carolina. That wouldn't work out. It wouldn't work out for them to take that California agenda to the South. They would get crushed. Why? Because there's way too many blacks over there. So they're not going to do it over there. You know?
Police. Because why you think they're scared of the police? Because they know they not ready to fight them or shoot it. They not ready for that, bro. They scary, bro. For me, like, it's that slave mentality that's embedded in our DNA, bro. We are scared of authority, bro. We're scared of authority. Let's look at a black person. Try to tell a black person, can't tell me what to do. You get what I'm saying?
Well, Snoopy, I gotta chime in there, because all that don't go on like in the South. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
man, I know, I've
not
been
even
there.
close. Like, it's like
I
not even,
love
that
black
would
people.
never happen.
I love black people on the East Coast, the Midwest, in the South. I love you. I love all y'all. I love, like, I've been to different places and I just see, black people on the corner selling things like the black people in Philly and on the East Coast is what the Hispanics is here. It's just blacks everywhere and it's beautiful, bro. And I love the way, they really with that black shit. You know what I'm saying? And I respect it. And I want to say this too, right? And I noticed the Bloods on the East Coast is way more structured than the Bloods in LA.
That is true. The Bloods on the East Coast are way more structured than the Bloods on the West Coast. That's a fact. And a lot of East Coast cats don't know that. The motherland is the West Coast, but I got to be honest. The Bloods on the East Coast are bigger in numbers and they're way more structured than the Bloods on the West Coast. The Bloods on the East Coast are way deeper than Bloods on the West Coast. Why? Because you got a bigger black population on the East Coast. So the Bloods over there have way more structure than the Bloods do on the West Coast. That is just those are the irrefutable facts. Snoopy ain't lying about that. Like if you go to the East Coast, Bloods actually have a literature and more of a structure and more organization on the East Coast than they do on the West Coast. That is a known fact. I've been there. I know what I'm talking about. The Bloods on the East Coast have way more structure than the Bloods do on the West Coast. That's a fact. That's a big old fact.
I don't understand why the East Coast Bloods even pay these Bloods in LA any attention, because they would smash these dudes out, bro. And I wanted to say that, bro. Like, the East Coast Bloods will smash these dudes out. These dudes in LA is lazy gangbangers, bro. They are not aggressive like y'all think they is, bro. These dudes ain't ready. Look it, homie. We dealing with gangsters that's used to sneaking in somebody's hood, popping shots, or murdering somebody and running off.
Exactly, Scoop. The Bloods on the East Coast are way more militant. They got way more numbers and they're way more militant and they have more structure. That is a fact. And I'm saying this as somebody who's from the West Coast. So I'm just being honest. I'm calling a spade, homie.
And hide from doing it. We not dealing with dudes that's used to combat. We not dealing with these youths that's used to being on offense. We not dealing with these dudes, bro. We not dealing with them type of dudes, bro. We not dealing with a dude that can shoot at somebody that's shooting back at them, bro. These dudes don't know what it's like to be in a shootout. They used to being sneaky, pulling up at somebody's hood, busting at them, or knocking one down and going off the high, bro. They not ready to go against the boogeyman with the same tools they got. We dealing with marks in LA, bro.
That's wild, man. Now that's probably gonna go crazy soon.
No, this is the truth. We dealing with these dudes are busters, bro. Feel me? We got these rappers talk about they love the hood so much, but you moved away. You don't live there. You in Vegas. You in Lancaster. You in Victorville. You're in Wisconsin.
Well, this is why, Snoopy, there's a reason for everything. These schools in Los Angeles are majority Latino. Why would I want my children going to a school that's 85 to 90% Mexican Latino? I want my children to go to a school where there's more of our people, at least a mixture of people. So you got high rent. You don't have a lot of jobs in these areas. Black people left Los Angeles for survival. There's better opportunities in other cities. This is why so many blacks have left the city of Los Angeles. They get better opportunities outside of Los Angeles, outside of Cali. So as a result of that, a lot of blacks have moved away because they want to feed their families. They want better opportunities for their children. It makes no sense to live in Los Angeles no more when the rent is high, is overpopulated with illegals. It makes no sense to live there no more. You're at this point, you're holding on to a sinking ship. At this point, if you black and you're living in Los Angeles in certain areas, you are holding on to a sinking ship. The black population is not growing. The black population is on a decline in many areas all over Los Angeles and Los Angeles County. The black population has decreased, is not going to increase. And the moment that your population starts to decrease, you lose political power. You don't have the numbers, which means you don't have political power. You're outnumbered in jails. You're outnumbered in these schools. And things are not going to work out in your favor just based on your low numbers. So as a result of that, when you think about economics and politics, not just street-ish, It was better for blacks to just move to other areas and other places for better opportunities, especially if you got children in a family. But anyway, man, I rest my case on that.
One down and going off the high, bro. They not ready to go against the boogeyman with the same tools they got. We dealing with marks in LA, bro.
That's wild, man. Now that's probably gonna go crazy soon.
No, this is the truth. We dealing with bust. These dudes are busters, bro. Feel me? They talk about, we got these rappers talk about they love the hood so much, but you moved away. You don't live there. You don't, oh yeah. You in Vegas. You in Lancaster. You in Victorville. You're in Wisconsin. You don't love you don't like you know it's the streets. But that's not cool to say because it don't go with your brand and your image, right?
Shout out to Lions Dollars for blessing the Cash App. Shout out to my girl. Shout out to House and Nicole. House and Nicole, I appreciate you for blessing the Cash App. Shout out to Scoop for blessing the Cash App. Shout out to Lloyd. Shout out to E. Lloyd for blessing the Cash App. Shout out to my dog Trenton for also pulling up and blessing the Cash App. And shout out to the people who blessed the Super Chat. If you bless the Super Chat, much love to you.
Look, homie, if you tired of your homies sweeping paperwork under the rug, you know, selective politicking, you know what I'm saying, or making fake paperwork.
Snoopy Badass said, "Get real," and says the Bloods and Crips fell off. Well, they fell out because of the lack of structure, the lack of organization. Blacks have lost numbers in Los Angeles. It's terrible, man. Black Los Angeles is terrible, especially for a black gangbanger. Now, if you a black citizen that's making power moves and getting money, it might be different for you. But when you think about black gang members, man, it's terrible. Absolutely. You can't even call your hood no more. You can't even call your neighborhood a hood no more. It's became a barrio. The East Side Low Bottoms is a barrio. It's not a hood no more. It looks like Mexico over there. Yeah.
Get they self out of stuff when it ain't the real paperwork. If you tired of all that, you tired.
And make sure that you guys get the likes up, family. Like, I'm bringing you guys this realness, this raw stuff. You know, I'm not, talking about gang banging in prison all day. That's keeping our people dumb. It's keeping our people stupid. They don't understand politics. They don't understand black unity. They're just gang banging and stuck on stupid while blacks are being pushed out of the city. But you still want to talk about gang banging and just foolishness all day, man. Y'all need to stop watching them channels. If you go to a channel and all they talk about is gang banging in prison, stop watching that, bro. Because that content is, excuse me, that content is keeping our people ignorant. It's keeping us stuck on stupid. You want to talk about gang banging in prison all day while the black population in Los Angeles continues to decline? That is ignorant content. That is low vibrational content. That is low frequency content. Content like that is keeping our people ignorant. I can see if you talk about it sometimes, but when your channel is based on gang banging in prison, you're part of the problem. You're keeping our people dumb. But then again, I can't blame them because you have a choice. You don't have to listen to those videos. You don't have to consume that content. But if you choose to consume content that only talks about gang politics and street BS all day, then you're going to operate on a low frequency because you're consuming. Why? Because you're consuming low frequency content. They don't talk about history. They don't talk about anything knowledgeable. They're not speaking on politics, nothing about history, just gang banging in prison, just stupid street conversations all day that never amounts to anything. So it's your fault if you're watching these grown ass men in their 30s and 40s who talk about gang banging and street BS all day. And they have nothing else to offer besides who snitched, who can't come back to the hood, who ain't a real Crip, who ain't a blood, who didn't catch the fade in the county, who can't walk the main line in prison. It's your fault if you're consuming that low frequency content all day. I can't even blame the content creator. I blame the consumer.
Tired of that? You tired of dealing with disloyal people? Come to the Red Mafia family and we take Crips too. Feel me? Because this ain't a blood organization. Feel me? We took the red rag. That belongs to RMF now. Dead homies.
Now, Snoopy, you made a comment earlier about the blue and the red rag. And I was like, man, that's one of my questions that I was going to get to. It was about a guy by the name of 59J, right? Now, he's a guy who is, I want to say he was a northerner, in the prison system, but he
Yeah, homie, that's bottom feeder content. When you got guys who talk about prison and gangbang and all that, that is bottom feeder content. I can't even blame the content creator because at this point I blame the consumer. You got to know better as an adult. You got to know better. You have to realize and recognize that that is low frequency content. Guys in their 30s and 40s, and they want to talk about gangbanging in prison and who didn't catch the fade or who ain't a real N-word. Just stupid stuff. Ignorance, stupidity. And they're spreading it all across the internet. But guess what? You as a consumer, you have a choice for what you listen to and what you don't listen to. So they're not forcing you to listen to that low vibrational content. They're not.
I guess he dropped out or something like that. There's a lot of, talk about what actually happened with him, but he's a YouTuber now. And he was recently telling a story about the whole money sign Suede situation and all that. But when it comes to like prison and the breakdown of things like that, could you explain for people out there who don't understand West Coast prisons and how that system works with the North and the South and all that? You know what I mean?
All right, enough of prison. Let's get back to history, man. I wanted to talk a little bit about gang thing. I'll do a whole nother stream about Snoopy Badass, right? You're gonna have gangbangers. Oh, Snoopy is this, Snoopy is that. You guys are no better. I don't hear nothing.
People don't know is that Mexico is border with Guatemala.
Yes.
Okay, we don't let them in. So the same thing that America does to Mexico, we do to Guatemala. Okay, it just the news is CNN, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, New York Post. They're never going to show you that. Just so you know, Mexico is extremely racist. So we have what are
To Guatemalans.
even to its own Mexicans. So you got to remember, Mexico was dominated by Spaniards. The only reason I look the way I look
Yes.
is because I'm 65% Spaniard.
Yeah.
Mexicans, like real Mexicans, or which is known as Mexica, not Mexico,
Yes.
Mexica, are 5'4", super dark with big noses and the heads pushed back. Aztecs and Mayans,
Like Indians.
like
you mean?
Indians.
Yes.
Well, we're natives, right?
Yeah.
So we're blended. So the reality is, in Mexico, till this day,
Mexico don't even want Guatemalans and El Salvadorians coming over there. They're deporting those people in large numbers. But when America decides to enforce our immigration and border policies, we're racist for we're considered racist for enforcing our border policies. But Mexico enforces their border policies, and they're deporting their own Spanish. They're deporting their own Spanish brothers and sisters, from neighboring countries. And Mexico is not considered racist for deporting people who speak the same language as them. But when California or the United States deport Mexicans, oh, it's racist to deport them. So we should let people just cross the border, have millions of anchor babies, and we shouldn't have a problem with it. We have no right to enforce our immigration policies. We have no right to enforce our border policies. America's considered racist, but it's all gravy for Mexico to enforce their immigration policies. That is hypocrisy.
so what a lot of people don't know is that Mexico is border with Guatemala.
Yes.
Okay, we don't let them in. So the same thing that America does to Mexico, we do to Guatemala. Okay, it just the news is CNN, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, New York Post. They're never going to show you that. Just so you know, Mexico is extremely racist. So we have what are
To Guatemalans.
House of Nicole, man, I'm gonna give you a wrench over here because you was rocking with me on TV1. So I'm gonna mod you up, House of Nicole. Shout out to House of Nicole. She's a contributor, she's a supporter. So I'm gonna mod you up, sweetie. Shout out to the House of Nicole. Now he's telling you.
even to its own Mexicans. So you got to remember, Mexico was dominated by Spaniards. The only reason I look the way I look
Yes.
is because I'm 65% Spaniard.
Yeah.
Mexicans, like real Mexicans, or which is known as Mexica, not Mexico,
Yes.
Mexica, are 5'4", super dark with big noses and the heads pushed back. Aztecs and Mayans,
Like Indians.
like
you mean?
Indians.
Yes.
Well, we're natives, right?
Yeah.
So we're blended. So the reality is, in Mexico, till this day, if you are not light complected, somewhat tall, you're frowned upon to this day. And by the way, they're very. So what a lot of people don't know is that Mexico is border with Guatemala.
Yes.
Okay, we don't let them in. So the same thing that America does to Mexico, we do to Guatemala. Okay, it just the news is CNN, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, New York Post. They're never going to show you that. Just so you know, Mexico is extremely racist. So we have what are
To
like
Guatemalans.
even to its own Mexicans. So you got to remember, Mexico was dominated by Spaniards. The only reason I look the way I look
Yes.
is because I'm 65% Spaniard.
Yeah.
Mexicans, like real Mexicans, or which is known as Mexica, not Mexico,
Yes.
Mexica, are 5'4", super dark with big noses and the heads pushed back. Aztecs and Mayans,
Like Indians.
like
you mean?
Indians.
Yes.
Well, we're natives, right?
Yeah.
So we're blended. So the reality is in Mexico till this day, if you are not light complected, somewhat tall, you're frowned upon to this day. And by the way, they're very. So what a lot of people don't know is that Mexico.
He's telling you the racism in Mexico. If you're dark skinned, you're frowned upon. Now, this is the same guy that called us mayates. I want you to hear this.
But we went at it with the blacks. Yeah, we had
This is the dude right here. Now, he went on the food community. He called us mayatas, right? This is the same guy right here. Now, and they didn't bleep it out, too. They let him say it, and they didn't bleep it out. Check out what he said. Ricardo Aguilar, a former Southsider, Serrano. I don't know if he was a Serrano. Maybe he was just a Southsider. I don't know. But this is what he said. So, and a lot of black people didn't say anything about this. They gave Lucky from Hood Style to push back for making an African booty scratcher comment. But this guy, check it out.
I'm in the life and I'm not active anymore.
Mhm.
But I got my placas. Like you're gonna know, you know what I mean? That I was a Southerner, I'm a Southerner, or was part of the Southern movement. So, but when I go up north, some of my agents. Matter of fact, I have an office in Porterville, Modesto, San Jose, Stockton. Yeah, half of my team is in Northern California. Some of the agents in there were norteños at one point, but we don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
I don't live that life anymore.
Yeah,
so
no, of course. No, I get it. Of course.
I don't care. They don't
Yeah.
care. We laugh sometimes.
And with that being said, like while you were inside, like, were there some type, if you could speak on it, if not, I respect it, were there some type of like intense altercations that you
Oh,
had,
absolutely. We went at it. We had a riot with the Mayates,
Oh,
the
shit.
blacks. Excuse me, I didn't mean to be derogatory that way.
like intense altercations that you
Oh,
had,
absolutely. We went at it. We had a riot with the Mayates.
Oh,
see how that mayata word just roll off of their mouth. This dude asked him in prison. So tell me about your prison experience. Oh, we went to war with the mayatas.
like while you were inside, like, were there some type, if you could speak on it, if not, I respect it, were there some type of like intense altercations that you
Oh,
had,
absolutely. We went at it. We had a riot with the Mayates,
Oh,
the
shit.
blacks. Excuse me, I didn't mean to be derogatory that way, but with the black, just the hood came back into
Right.
But we went at it with the blacks. Yeah, we had a little bit of an issue
Oh,
with the blacks. Over the paisas, they started drinking Bruno, got drunk, and they started acting up with the blacks. So then they jumped, we jumped.
Classic.
Yeah, that's
like intense altercations that you
Oh,
had,
absolutely. We went at it. We had a riot with the Mayates,
Oh,
the
shit.
blacks. Excuse me, I didn't mean to be derogatory that way, but with the black, just the hood came back into
Right.
But we went at it with the blacks. Yeah, we had a little bit of an issue
Oh,
with the
shit.
blacks. Over the paisas, they started.
No, so you see how so racism is a part of their culture, but guess what? They've been brainwashed by the Spanish conquistadors, man. So this is why they talk like that. It's just common language in their community. Just like the old guy. I did a picture of the old guy saying the same thing. He said the same thing. So we already know what it is. You know how Mexicans really feel about black folks. Let's not play these games. We know what it is. You know what I mean? So when you see blacks saying things about Mexicans, they're just responding. They're just responding from the racism that comes from the black community, from their community. Now let's show it like this. Watch this. Now I'm gonna show you the black founders in Los Angeles, right? And how a lot of people really don't know about this, which is sad. They should know about it, but they don't. Let's get into how blacks played a major role in building Los Angeles. A lot of Mexicans don't know this because they're fed that Spanish conquistador history. That's just the truth. You know, it's just the truth.
Folks, black people founded the city of Los Angeles, the historic city, Los Angeles, California, founded by black people. The Los Angeles pobladores, or townspeople, were a group of 44 settlers and 4 soldiers from Mexico who established the famed city on May 26th in 1781 in what is now California. The settlers came from various Spanish castes, with over half of the group being African descent. Governor of Las Californias, Felipe de Neve, called on 11 families to
They're gonna
help.
say, "Oh no, this is not true. This is just a YouTube video. Study the history, fool." You can look up everything for yourself, and you're gonna find the same thing. It's not my fault that you're ignorant to history.
Built the new city in the region by recruiting them from Sonora and Sinaloa, Mexico. According to the census recorded taken at the time, there were 2 persons of African ancestry, 8 Spanish and black persons, and 9 American Indians. There was also 1 Spanish and Indian person, with the rest being Spaniards. It is important to understand that during that time, the territory of Mexico included the state of California, Texas, Arizona, and several other states which are American territories today. But during that time, they were all considered Mexican territory. In later years, the southern part of that region was sectioned off to be what we know as Mexico today. And keep in mind, many of the early settlers, even though they had Spanish surnames, were actually black people. Names like Ortiz.
That's because the black Seminoles who went to Mexico, they were told, like, well, if you come to Mexico, you got to take on Spanish names and help us to defend the border against the United States. So a lot of black people took on Spanish names. This is why when you look it up, these are black people that just had Spanish names. So the Europeans did everything in their power to erase the history, but blacks played a major role in building Los Angeles. I'm just giving you the facts. Allensworth. Have you guys ever heard of Allensworth? Pretty sure a lot of you guys never heard of Allensworth, man. But Allensworth is like right by Bakersfield, and that was a a real black city. Seriously.
Cabrera, Clemente, La Negra. You get the point. According to the efforts of historian William M. Mason, the actual racial makeup of the Pladores was more racially balanced than not. Mason wrote that of the 44, only 2 were white, while 12 African ancestry, and that 16 of the group were mestizos, or mixed Spanish and Indian people. The pobladores founded the city El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora La Reina de los Ángeles sobre el Río Porciuncula, Spanish for the town of Our Lady Queen of the Angels on the Porciuncula River, that day after some priests found the area 10 years prior. Another historian, Dr. Antonio Rios Bustamante, states that Los Angeles' original settlers were even more mixed than the census stated, but was that African, Indian, and European ancestry was a hallmark. In Los Angeles, the El Pueblo de Los Angeles State Historic Park honored the pobladores in the 1950s with a plaque, but it was mysteriously removed. In a Los Angeles Times report, it was suggested that the removal of the plaque was racially motivated. However, in 1981, during the city's bicentennial, the plaque was replaced. So you see, Los Angeles has a lot more black history than most people realize. In 1872,
The first African Methodist Episcopal Church was established in Los Angeles when emancipated blacks began moving to the city in significant numbers toward the end of the Civil War. In 1885, the Second Baptist Church for African Americans was built. Now, the first African Methodist Episcopal Church was founded by Bridget Biddy Mason, who arrived as a slave in Los Angeles in 1856. However, since California was a free state, Mason, with the help of local black and white abolitionists, successfully sued in court to win her freedom. In 1920, Paul Revere Williams, a famous black architect credited for shaping Los Angeles, began designing homes and commercial buildings throughout the cities. Locations like Central Avenue became the focal point for African American communities. In fact, Central Avenue was the location of the vibrant Los Angeles jazz scene that attracted such greats as Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Bessie Smith, and others. And to this date, Dr. Ralph J. Bunche's home, who was the first person of color to win the Nobel Peace Prize, remains a landmark on Central Avenue. The Dunbar Hotel, originally known.
So this is true. Let me show you this right here, though. Check this out. Check this out. So a lot of this black history, bro, was erased. Like, you got to know, like, they tried their best to erase the founders, some of the black founders of Los Angeles. But guess what? That's what Spanish conquistadors do. That's what Europeans are known for. That's what they're actually known for.
Because there is colorism in Mexico, and we spoke about it. The darker you are, the more you are associated with ignorance, with lack of knowledge, with lack of education, with low class, right? With poverty, aka a cuanto los tamales. And then the lighter you are, the more you're associated with high status, right? With wealth, with education. The term mestizo, it's similar to the term mixed or mulatto for black Americans, right? Where it's the mixing of white and black. In our case, the mixing of white and indigenous. But really, the seed is carried with the father. You are whatever your father is. Now, if your father is a European man, sure, you're European, but there's not a mixture, right? Because there is colorism in Mexico, and we spoke about it. The darker you are, the more you are associated with ignorance, with lack of knowledge, with lack of education, with low class, right? With poverty, aka a cuanto los tamales. And then the lighter you are, the more you're associated with high status, right? With wealth, with education. The term mestizo, it's similar to the term mixed or mulatto for black Americans, right? Where it's the mixing of white and black. In our case, the mixing of white and indigenous. But really, the seed is carried with the father. You are whatever your father is. Now, if your father is a European man, sure, you're European, but there's not a mixture, right? Because there is colorism in Mexico, and we spoke about it. The darker you are, the more you are associated with ignorance, with lack of knowledge, with lack of education, with low class, right? With poverty, aka a cuanto los tamales. And then the lighter you are, the more you're associated with high status, right? With wealth, with education. The term mestizo, it's
See, that comes from the Spaniards. This is why anti-blackness runs so deep in Mexican culture. So when you understand Latin America, the history of Latin America and the anti-blackness, they can't lie to you. You're going to have several Mexicans who are going to deny the racism that comes from their community, but they've been indoctrinated to view black people in a negative light. I'm just giving you the historical, irrefutable facts. You got some Mexicans who are real enough to admit it, but the majority of them will deny the anti-blackness that comes from their culture.
So I ain't running around trying to convince no hoe or nothing.
I'm trying to hear none of that.
Around 250, a black woman born enslaved quietly bought the ground beneath it. Her name was Biddy Mason. She didn't ask for permission. She mastered freedom, money, and land. and the ripple of her choices still moves through this city today. Biddy Mason was born on August 15, 1818, in the American South. Enslaved from birth, she learned midwifery, herbal medicine, and the skills to deliver life under pressure. In the late 1840s, she was forced west, first to Utah, then to San Bernardino, California. California was a free state on paper, but enslavers tried to drag black people back into bondage anyway. In 1856, when her enslaver attempted to move the family to Texas, Biddy stood up. With help from free black Angelenos, especially the Owens family, and allies in the courts, she petitioned for her freedom. Judge Benjamin Hayes granted it. Biddy, her 3 children, and others walked out of court free. But freedom is a start, not a strategy. Biddy went to work. She nursed. She midwifed. She became indispensable in a small, growing Los Angeles, often working with local physicians. She saved every dollar. She gave generously to people in need, and she helped birth institutions, co-founding the first African Methodist Episcopal Church of Los Angeles in 1872, the city's first black church. Then came the move that changed her family forever. In 1866, Biddy purchased land on Spring Street for around $250. She didn't flip it for quick cash. She held it. She improved it. She collected rent. As Los Angeles boomed, that modest parcel multiplied in value. Over time, she acquired multiple lots, creating a base of income and dignity for her children and grandchildren. By the time of her passing on January 15, 1891, Biddy Mason had turned skilled labor into real estate, and real estate into community power. Her estate was widely reported to be worth many tens of thousands of dollars, well over $1 million in today's money. But her true legacy was structure, property titled, income diversified, a church anchored, and a family network trained to think in assets. She was known to say, "If you hold your hand closed, nothing good can come in." Biddy gave, but she also held. She understood a timeless lesson. Cash feeds today, land feeds generations. So what happened after she died? The short answer, the land kept moving, and so did Los Angeles. Her holdings passed primarily to her daughters and into the extended Owens family through marriage. In the 1890s and early 1900s, downtown swelled. Spring Street transformed into the city's financial artery. Parcels were improved, consolidated, sold, or redeveloped, sometimes by the family, sometimes by new investors as values skyrocketed. This is the pattern across American cities. When an early parcel sits where finance and speculation later collide, pressure mounts. Family members age, taxes rise, developers knock. Sometimes there are partition actions or probate complications. Sometimes the family cashes out by choice. Over decades, portions of Biddy's properties left the family's hands as downtown densified. Buildings went up, buildings got remodeled. Eventually, many were demolished. By the late 20th century, her original homestead site was no longer a home at all, but the city remembered. In the early 1990s, artists and civic leaders dedicated Biddy Mason Park along Spring Street, an outdoor timeline engraved with her life in the very ground she once secured. The land changed owners. The story remained. And what does that story teach us? Biddy Mason's genius was not an accident. It was a framework. 1. Build skills the market needs. 2. Convert earned income into appreciating assets. 3. Title property cleanly and plan for heirs. 4. Anchor community institutions that outlast you. And 5. Remember this. Generosity and discipline can live in the same house. Her parcels moved, her city transformed, but her blueprint still stands. If Biddy Mason could buy Spring Street with $250 in vision, what can we do together if we treat our paychecks like seed and our neighborhoods like fertile ground? This is Black Dollar.
See, a lot of them know about Biddy Mason. They don't know about the Black history of the Americas. They don't know about the Black history of Los Angeles because they have that Spanish conquistador mindset. They don't understand real history. Why? Because the Spanish conquistadors erased a lot of this history. You know, a Mexican catcher says, man, these are just YouTube videos. You fool. You can study the history for yourself. And you'll come up with the same answers. I don't just post videos because it's somebody making a video. I study these things outside of YouTube, and I use these videos to give you a visual.
And culture, sharing real history, real strategy, and real ownership.
So yeah, that's Biddy Mason, man. I'm just giving you guys the history of you know, some black history of Los Angeles. And you know, yeah, a lot of these people are just ignorant. They don't understand our contributions and what we did for this country or what we did in the world in general. They're ignorant to the facts. You got Mexicans today who don't even know that a black man created the traffic light that's used all across the world. They don't know that because their people don't teach them. They talk negative about black people, so they don't understand the history and they don't understand the things that we've actually done. They don't know. They've been indoctrinated with this anti-blackness. This keeps them ignorant of history. This keeps them ignorant when it comes to history. Right. Anyway, man, we're going to get up out of here, though, man. Like I said, man, I came here to share this knowledge and information. Make sure that you guys bless the like button. Make sure that you guys bless the like button. It ain't nothing. You know what I mean? Bless the like button, support the channel. And we're dropping a lot of knowledge pertaining to history over here. We'll talk about street stuff. We'll dibble and dabble in the street stuff. But at the same time, we're going to talk about history. We're going to uplift our people by sharing this knowledge about history. Can you feel me? So, yo, peace, love, and blessings. Giving you gain to keep you from stressing. It's King Supreme. Make sure that you support the game in a beautiful way. I appreciate you all. Subscribe to the channel. They're lost and full of indoctrination. Exactly, Miss T. Wilson. Shout out to Miss T. Wilson for being a contributor and a supporter. Shout out to Ambitions as a writer. Appreciate you, baby. Miss Lotus Ty, you know I appreciate you, baby. You know, shout out to all the ladies that's been showing a lot of love and support the King Supreme. And I continue to bring you these shows, and we're going to educate everybody, not just our people when it comes to history. Shout out to Biddy Mason. Biddy Mason was an educated, powerful black woman. She did a lot. She did a whole lot for the city of California, for the city of Los Angeles, for the state of California. Biddy Mason did a whole lot. And a lot of these Chicanos, they don't know anything about who we really are because they've been brainwashed by Spanish conquistadors. So that's where that is where their anti-blackness come from. You know, they don't know nothing about our history and what we done. They don't even understand that hip hop comes from black culture. That's how ignorant a lot of them actually are. It's a damn shame, but I got to be honest about it. Peace to everybody. Shout out to the ladies. Shout out to the brothers. Shout out to all my people who's been sliding on through with that heavy support, bringing heavy support on a daily basis. Though now some of these people who was rocking with the channel for Red Supreme TV1, they fell off, and it's all good. They don't rock with the channel. It's cool. I'll replace them with people who will support the channel. So we're going to replace a lot of the old moderators from TV1 with new moderators on TV2. Out with the old and in with the new. If you supported the channel before and you don't support no more, it's all gravy. I'll just replace you with new moderators and new supporters because you got a lot of people who are new to the channel that's rocking with the content, that support the content. Ain't no love lost, baby. But if you're dead weight and you only show up every blue moon, there's no need to have a wrench on my channel if you only show up every blue moon. It's all good. Ain't no love lost. Shout out to the new subscribers. Shout out to the new supporters. This is 2026. We're going to bring in people who really rock with the channel. Peace to everybody. I appreciate you all. Subscribe to the channel. I'm gone. That's 100.